With the transfer window slamming shut this week, today on Eurofootball Daily, we're running through the 10 biggest panic buys of the summer. Remember, the most liked comment will get a shout out on this week's Sunday Vibes, so get your thoughts in the comments section. Buckle up, let's go. 10. Jannik Vestergaard. While Jannik Vestergaard, capped 28 times by Denmark, is clearly a very talented player, there can be no question about it. Leicester City's €17 million acquisition of him reeks of panic. With Evans, Justin and Castagne, three of their four most used defenders last season, out injured, the Foxes were already thin on the ground when Wesley Fofana was cruelly sidelined in a horrific pre-season challenge against Villarreal. Brendan Rodgers, realising Söyüncü was his only fit senior centre-back, acted swiftly to bring in Vestergaard to bolster his resources. However, a knee injury picked up by the new man in training meant he's been forced to field Söyüncü and Amati as his starting centre-backs in all three games, during which they've conceded 5 goals. At 29, Vestergaard clearly isn't a long-term option, and while Justin and Evans are fully fit, he won't be the first choice. His arrival has certainly eased the immediate panic at the King Power, but we can't help but think that his €17 million fee would have been much better spent on that much-needed right winger. 9. Davide Zappacosta. While Chelsea's incomings have caught admiring glances from across Europe this summer, their outgoings have been arguably just as impressive. They have made over £100 million in sales for the fourth time since 2011-12, more than double any other Premier League side. And while many fans struggled with the departures of homegrown players like Abraham, Guehi, Livramento and Tomori, few if any shed a tear over the exit of Zappacosta. Signed by Antonio Conte ahead of his disastrous second season in 2017-18, he only ever made 52 appearances for the club with just 13 league starts. After a highly forgettable 2019-20 campaign spent on loan at Roma, he did make more of an impact at Genoa last term, but it was still some surprise when Atalanta decided to fork out €9.4 million to sign the 29-year-old this summer. With Hatterber out until early October, Gasperini needed a backup to Marla on the right-hand side, but given the fact he completed just 41% of his dribbles and only put in 2.3 tackles and interceptions per 90, we'd be surprised if Zappacosta made much of an impact in Bergamo this season. 8. Willian José. Nothing about Willian José's 6-month loan spell at Wolves in 2020-21 suggested he would move this summer. The former Brazil under-20 international arrived in difficult circumstances following Jimenez's harrowing injury, and turning out for a side exhausted from playing back-to-back seasons with a minuscule squad, he underwhelmed. Often isolated, he managed just 1 goal in 18 appearances, no surprise given he only fired off 1.1 shots per 90 and struggled to bring others into play too, only creating 12 chances in over 1,000 league minutes. It was therefore surprising that when Real Betis loaned Loren Moron to Espanyol in late August, Manuel Pellegrini turned to the Real Sociedad man to fill the void. Luckily for the striker, the pitches of La Liga have been far more kind to him recently, with 4 consecutive seasons of at least 10 league goals prior to the 2021 campaign. With Borja Iglesias having largely struggled in Seville since his €29 million signing 2 years ago, Pellegrini will be hoping the tigerish Real Sociedad Willian José turns up, rather than the meek Wolves version who averaged just 0.1 expected goals per 90 last term. 7. Joe Hart. Having made a grand total of 0 Premier League appearances over the last 2 seasons, Joe Hart was arguably very lucky to secure a move to Celtic this summer, and there was a definite air of panic around his arrival. The boys' season had got off to a dreadful start, having been knocked out of the Champions League by Midtjylland and beaten in their opening league game by Hearts. With Scott Bain and the hapless Vasilis Barkas, who was central to their UCL exits, the only keepers on the books, new manager Postecoglou was certain he needed a new number 1 if Celtic were to improve on a disappointing 2021 campaign. In terms of what Hart can bring, he's obviously incredibly experienced, having kept 127 Premier League clean sheets, 11th in the all-time list, winning 2 titles and being capped 75 times by his country. But his last 2 seasons of regular top-flight football with West Ham in 17-18 and Burnley the following year saw him concede 6.3 goals more than expected, as his skills between the sticks seem to be deteriorating. The pressure is firmly on the Englishman to disprove the doubters at Celtic Park. 6. Matías Fina. It's always difficult when you lose a player, but to lose one of Leonardo Spinazzola's quality during a game in which he was playing for his national team was a particularly cruel blow for Jose Mourinho's Roma. with the left back expected to be sidelined for at least 6 months, and with a paucity of options in that position, the former Spurs boss was quick to move for Palmeiras' Matthias Vina. The 23-year-old, already capped 16 times by Uruguay, has a pretty solid CV, including titles in both Brazil and his home nation, but when you lift the lid on the player signed for an initial €13 million, it's a little bit underwhelming. While 2 goals and 3 assists in 12 Copa Libertadores games suggests he should be more than capable of contributing in the final third, his 0.7 dribbles per league game, almost half that of Spinazzola, suggests he isn't quite at the Italians' level just yet. What's more, he's never managed to complete 80% of his passes across a single campaign. A promising player, but potentially nothing more than a stopgap. 5. Marko Arnautović. After spells with Inter, Wolfsburg and Stoke, Marko Arnautović had finally established himself as a dependable Premier League forward, having netted at least 10 goals in 3 of the 4 previous seasons when he was tempted by the lure of the Chinese Super League in July 2019. But while other imports such as Aaron Zahavi, Paulinho and Graziano Pella enjoyed a lot of success in China, Arnautović largely struggled, only hitting 19 league goals in 3 seasons, fewer than he managed in his final 2 campaigns in East London. So it screamed of panic when Bologna, fresh from losing Rodrigo Palacio to Brescia, leapt at the chance to sign Arnautović. On paper, that sounds like an incredibly strange sentence. After all, with Palacio at 39 years of age, exchanging him for a player 7 years younger seems like a smart bit of business. But the fact is that the 27-capped Argentine had been immense for the Rosso Blu, contributing 20 league goals over the last 2 seasons, 19% of the team's total. Arnautović, back in Serie A for the first time in 11 years, has big shoes to fill. 4. Luuk de Jong. After a summer that had seen Barcelona's greatest ever player forced out of the club and their leadership group take pay cuts in order to even register their new signings, most Blaugrana fans expected a quiet deadline day. But instead the circus continued. Mundo Deportivo reported that they'd made a €75 million offer for RB Leipzig's Dani Olmo before deciding to loan out Antoine Griezmann to his former club Atletico Madrid and replace him with Sevilla's Luuk de Jong. Let's leave the decision to loan Griezmann, a player they paid €120 million for in 2019, to one side and focus on their new striker. Having recently turned 31 and capped 38 times by his country, De Jong offers Koeman an experienced alternative at number 9, but in terms of goal scoring he's pretty underwhelming. De Jong has never managed to score more than 6 league goals in a single season outside of the Eredivisie, and last season managed just 4 in 34 La Liga appearances for Sevilla. With Braithwaite, De Jong and Aguero, Koeman now has 3 options with a combined age of 94, who scored 10 league goals between them in 75 appearances last term. It looks like it really will be on Memphis to carry the attack this season. 3. Edin Džeko. On the 12th of August 2021, Romelu Lukaku's return to Chelsea was confirmed, and the majority of Inter Milan fans were absolutely gutted. Months after the Belgium had fired them to the Scudetto with an incredible 35 league goal contributions and declared that he was happy in Milan, the lure of a return to his childhood club proved too much. Luckily for them, Simone Inzaghi acted decisively to replace the club's outgoing stars, bringing in Çalhanoğlu and Dzeko on free transfers and Joaquin Correa for just a €5.2 million loan fee. And although there was a definite sense of panic around Dzeko's arrival in particular, given the fact he played in a friendly against Dynamo Kiev prior to being announced, he's actually started exceptionally well, with a goal and an assist in his 2 games to date. But at 35 years old and having scored 28 fewer goals than XG predicted over the last 5 seasons, he's clearly not at the peak of his powers. Nevertheless, for a 2-year deal, it's not the worst panic buy of the window. 2. Aaron Ramsdale. Have you ever heard of panic buying a year early? Well, we hadn't either. But that appears to have been what happened with Arsenal's €29 million capture of Aaron Ramsdale, just €1 million less than what Real Madrid paid for Camavinga. The Gunners' logic was that with 29-year-old Bernd Leno in the final year of his contract and yet to extend, they should snap up a promising young goalkeeper to provide competition. And despite what you read on Twitter, Ramsdale is that goalkeeper. Yes, he's been relegated in back-to-back years, but 2021 saw him save 1.9 more goals than XG predicted, ahead of the likes of Pickford, Schmeichel, Henderson, De Gea and Rui Patricio. But our issue was that in a window in which Arsenal needed to strengthen pretty much every area of their squad, but particularly right back, central midfield and their strikers, they chose to spend €29 million on a keeper who won't necessarily start. With Alphonse Areola, the second best goalkeeper in Europe's top 5 leagues by post-expected goals behind Jan Oblak last season, available on a short-term deal, they could well live to regret it. 1. Cristiano Ronaldo. Signed for a very reasonable initial fee of €15 million on a 2-year contract, while Cristiano Ronaldo's return to Man United has not been universally welcomed among the Red Devils fan base, it did spark celebrations among the majority, despite many of them turning against him hours earlier when it seemed a move to Man City was more likely. But those pleased with this transfer aren't just riding a wave of nostalgia. Ronaldo guarantees goals, having scored 101 in 134 games for Juve despite doubts over whether he actually made the team more effective. At United, a side based around moments of individual brilliance from outstanding attacking players, he'll fit right in. But he's still a panic buy, having been linked with a return to Old Trafford on many occasions since his departure in 2009, the hierarchy waited until a move to their closest rivals appeared imminent to finally swoop. With Cavani and Greenwood already on their books, and even Anthony Martial playing at 9 for much of the 2019-20 season, United needed right-back competition and a defensive midfielder before another striker. Having agreed to pay Ronaldo an extraordinary £480,000 a week, 25% more than the Premier League's next highest earner Kevin De Bruyne, United had better hope his arrival can force them over the line and finally land them another trophy. If he can't, the club might well be left thinking like Juventus, was it really worth it? So those were our 10 biggest panic buys of the window, but did you disagree with any of them and why? Let us know in the comments below and we'll do our best to reply. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to Euro Football Daily and leave it a like, and why not click on screen right now for another great video. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.